Today we're going to be going from these pieces to a finished pendant like this. Today we're making a pendant using black onyx, an 18 gauge plate, and some crown bezel. Put the plate off to the side. First, we have to make sure that the edges of the bezel wire is perfectly flat 90 degrees so they will solder well together. Using this jig, I'm going to make sure the edge is nice and flat. Make it smooth. There you go. That works well. Make both sides smooth, just to make it work a little better. Now, we wrap it around the stone. As you can see, it's nice and tight. And then we mark it off. Right about there. Very good. And then we snip it just a little bigger than my mark. And then we put that back in the jig again. So both edges are perfectly flat and they'll solder well together. And then we double check it. And I got to make a little adjustment on that. There. Very good. Very good. Very nice. Once again, we have a nice flat edge, just a little filing. We wrap it around again, make sure it fits. I need my plastic pliers. Flatten it out. This takes a little time to make everything fit perfectly, so you have a gorgeous seam. And then we see if this actually does fit together nice and tightly. It does. It does. Very good. Now we just have to work the edges so they're nice and flat. So no edges raised a little bit. And I'm feeling it with my finger to see if there is a raised edge. And I'm just making little adjustments so it's nice and flat. Very good. Now, we're ready to solder. That doesn't look just right. It looks like it's off just a little bit. And I want it to be perfect so it won't give me any trouble later. There. It's getting a little better, a little work, just a little bending, small little increments. Very well. Make it flat. Just flattening it out a little bit. There, that's nice. Okay. I'm going to put a little flux on the area, just a little bit. And I want to heat that there, just so it dries. And now I need to get a piece of solder. Oops. Solder. Some solder wire. And I'm going to use one of these scrubbies to clean off the solder, any tarnish. Some people pickle them. That just takes too much time, so I would rather just use a scrubby, one of these little scrubby things. And that works just fine for cleaning the solder. And I'm going to snip a little piece into the cap. And dunk it into the flux. Once it's wet with flux, then it's good to be soldered. There. Now we're ready. Wait until the solder flows and then we're done. There it is. That doesn't take long at all. And then we drop it into the pickle. And we wait. Into the pickle. Now I took the bezel out of the pickle. The acid bath that cleans it up. Now I took the bezel out of the pickle, the acid bath that cleans it up, and I'm going to make sure that the stone fits, and it fits beautifully. Now it's time to solder it to the plate. But first, I'm going to take the plate and roughen it up and remove any tarnish, any dirt, so the solder will flow. So there. That's nice and clean. Now we're going to put that on here. And the first thing I need to do is make sure it has a lot of flux on it. So using flux, I'm going to put it all around the outside. I'll hold it down on my fingers and make sure it's well fluxed. There. And I'm going to heat that up a little bit. Get the flux to harden. Now I have to place the solder all around the edges, which I'm using an easy solder. It's already been rolled and flattened. You can see it's got a flat edge to it. Comes out round. And I'm going to clean this off as well. All sides. I'm going to clean it. Just make sure it's nice and clean. Then I'm going to snip a bunch of it into the cap. Make sure there's flux on every solder piece. As I place it down, I want to make sure everything flows nicely. To have it flow, you got to make sure there's flux. That should do it. Now to place the solder around the circle, inner circle. Now to place the solder around the circle, inner circle. To save time, I've already placed it edge to edge, so there's lots of solder to flow, and it's time to use a torch. And be very careful that you don't get it too hot or you'll melt the bezel. I turn it, constantly turning it, to draw the solder out to the outside. Heating up the plate. I turn it, constantly turning it, to draw the solder out to the outside. And the solder should flow once it reaches its temperature. And I just keep going in a circle until it flows. We're getting close now. There, some of it's flowing already. There we go. Very nice. Is complete. It goes in the pickle. Once it comes out of the pickle, you can see we have edges and sides that need to be removed. So I'm going to take it off camera and put it on a guillotine cutter and cut off as much as I can, and then I'm going to have to grind and hand sand using sanding sticks, as you'll see, to get it nice and smooth. As you can see, the guillotine cutter cuts straight edges, so now I have to round them off on the grinder. We'll use a machine. It's faster, easier, but I will have some handwork to do after that. hot, so I have to dunk a lot. Just to cool it down. Don't want to burn my hands. Frequent dunking because it gets hot. Yep, that's it. Now that we have the edges, the flat edges off my pendant, I need to round off, and I'm using 240 grit, sandpaper on a stick. Sandpaper on a stick, and I'm just going to round off, and it's pretty rough right now, but it goes a little faster when you start out rough. And then we'll smooth it out with 400 and then 1,000. And then I'm going to go to 1,000 grit. 1,000. It's a little smoother. And take off that roughness, make it nice and shiny, nice and smooth. And that just takes a little bit to do, not much. And I'm going to go to the back. You can see me just flattening out the back, making the back nice and smooth too. And there, it's done. Now that all the hand sanding is done, it's time to pick a bale from ones that I have cast. And I think that'll be the one. I need to work on the edge a little bit here. A little grinding, a little sanding, make it flat, and then we'll solder it on to the cup. I have the bale in a ring holder, and I'm going to do some sanding on it just to make it nice and flat. Nice little flat surface. And then I'm going to attach it in the third hand. The important part is to align it so it's nice and straight and balanced onto the pendant. Very important. Once the bail is aligned on the cup, you put a little flux on it. Once again, I have easy solder, and I'm going to clean the end, get any dirt off it, so it will flow nicely. Very good. I'm going to cut a piece and get some flux on that. Then I'm going to place it there. Very good. Now I'm ready to solder. As soon as the solder melts, I take the heat away. I don't want to damage or melt anything else beyond the easy solder. And that should happen pretty quick. It balls up nicely. There it is. In the pickle it goes. There. Now that the bail is soldered on, I'm going to clean it up a little using one of these 3M brushes. Doesn't take much. This is a rougher 3M brush. Now I'm going to switch to a finer 3M brush, and that's going to put a little polish on it. And that's all the polishing I'm going to do. My method of making a pendant doesn't take a lot of polishing. I use 2 3M wheels. I make it shiny. Now it's time to put on the jeweler's maker's mark. Since I work with 999, I'm going to stamp a 999, and then I'm going to stamp my initials. And then I'm going to put it in the shaker, probably for 12 to 16 hours, and that will give it the luster and shine that the final jewelry piece will have before I set the stone. I don't spend a lot of time polishing. I let the shaker do that. So now next, what I need to do is put on and then my initials. And then that's it. In the shaker it'll go. I have the bezel that I was working on. Put it in the shaker. Put some solution in. turn it on. Now that we're finished shaking it, we're going to wash it off. Now it's ready for the setting. The pendant needs no more polishing. It is beautiful, shiny, and ready to have the stone set. Such a beautiful shiny finish just from shaking for 12 hours. The stone will fit beautifully. Now I just have to glue it in. Now for just a little glue. I use Loctite. It's a gel. Now to set the stone. I'm going to wait for it to dry for a little bit, and then I will push the bezel over the stone and lock it in mechanically. So it has both a chemical and mechanical lock onto the stone in the pendant. There, it's done.